Hey, good morning, everybody. It is a rainy, cold Monday, April 27th. Happy first day of vacation? No, I guess no vacation. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, two things I want to accomplish today as we begin the week. One is to review the quiz that you see right here that you took on Thursday slash Friday. And the second thing is to introduce another group that we're going to talk about who was treated less than desirably, let's say, in the early part of the 19th century. So let's take a look at the quiz here. Uh, Number one, why is the unit called the 4th of July? The answer is C. It's based on a speech which questions why slavery exists in a country celebrating independence. All right. So it's not just necessarily about slavery, although that was the original topic of the speech. Let's go ahead and jump over number five right here. It says, who is the man of the picture? When we say Bleeding Kansas or Harper's Ferry, you should be thinking about John Brown there. Okay. Frederick Douglass, yes, he was of that time. David Walker, we haven't talked about him, but he was of that time. Peter Lawford. Peter Lawford was like a B-level actor in the 1950s and 60s. He was kind of like friends with Frank Sinatra. So no offense to Peter Lawford, but he is not the right answer here. So if you put Peter Lawford, self-direction, I'll just say self-direction. Number two, which American gave the speech that we talked about, 4th of July? That would be Frederick Douglass, C. Jumping over number six, Charles Sumner was the Massachusetts senator. All four of those are actually senators from Massachusetts. Some still alive, some still in office, some not in office, still alive. But Charles Sumner is obviously the one that we're looking for there. He was the one featured in the drawing that we looked at in lesson 4 and lesson 5, I believe. Number three, the Nat Turner Slave Rebellion took place in 1831. Really, the only answer that makes sense. Well, I guess A kind of makes sense too, but that's before the American Revolution. Not to say that we didn't have slavery before the American Revolution, because of course we had. But C and D are both take place after slavery ended in 1865. Jumping over to number seven, abolitionists Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth, Matilda Gage. They fought for the rights of women, which will dovetail into what we're talking about today. Number four, the popular anti-slavery novel was Uncle Tom's Cabin. Those other ones are written by a guy named John Steinbeck, one of my favorite authors. But D is Uncle Tom's. The correct answer is D, Uncle Tom's Cabin. And number eight, William Lloyd Garrison's anti-slavery newspaper was called Be the Liberator. So if you go to your quizzes, anything that is highlighted in a different color than what you use is the correct answer. So if you see nothing highlighted, that means you got them all right. All right, let me jump over to the screen. There I am again. So lesson 6, we're going to talk about women's rights. Now, by putting a women's rights conversation after we talked about slavery and abolition, do I mean to equate the two? Like being a woman in 1850 was as bad as being a slave? No, I don't. I mean, sure, you could make some comparisons, but I think that's probably a lazy way of being a historian. I think that each group should be, you should learn about them for how they were treated, sort of the struggles that they had individually as different groups. There were some similarities because if you're fighting for the rights of one group, then you're probably some of those same arguments could be used for that other group as well. But by having them in the same unit, I do not mean to say that living as a woman was like living as a slave, because I don't think that really serves either group when talking about them. Anyway, these sections are actually right from your textbook, so I just typed them in. So I apologize for any typos. The first section here says women reformers face barriers, and we're introduced to especially the woman in bold here, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And it talks about her and Lucretia Mott going to an anti-slavery conference in London and how they were treated, not because of what they said, but just because of their gender. And a couple of questions to answer there, number 1 and number 2. So anytime you see the 3 asterisks, that means I'm expecting an answer there. And then Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton decided to do something about it. So they held something called the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 in upstate New York in Seneca Falls. And there they wrote something called the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions, which is modeled after the Declaration of Independence. So for those of you who love to answer Declaration of Independence for every single question that I've ever asked, ever in your life, in my life, in anyone's life, you might get a chance to actually use that as an answer on this next test. Happy day. But the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions, as we've talked about with the Declaration of Independence, yes, there's the opening paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence where the language that we know of Thomas Jefferson, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that whole line. But the rest of it is mostly a big long list of complaints, right? It's he has pillaged our towns and burned our coast. He has cut off international trade. He is, I know I'm messing up some of these, but I'm paraphrasing here. But the he was always King George III, right? That's who all this blame is being put on the monarchy, being put on King George III at that time. Whereas when the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions, the he is sort of like the male power structure, right? The idea that every single person who signed the Constitution, every single person who or voted for the Constitution, everybody who signed the Declaration of Independence, every single president or vice president or senator or Supreme Court justice or representative until this time had all been men. So that's sort of like the he here, except it's not obviously King George III because he ain't around no more. So the last part, so just one question there, asking you what suffrage is. And then the final part is a little bit tricky. It's actually language from this document that was created at the Seneca Falls Convention. So it's not easy, all right? But what I pulled is, let's see, 8 different lines from it. And all you have to do, the directions say right here, it says, below are 8 excerpts from the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions that was created at 1848's Seneca Falls Convention. Choose 2 of the 8 and attempt to put it in your own words in the space below. Okay, so if I was trying this one, just write something in right there, and you should be good. Although hopefully you write something a little bit more that won't be quite as nonsensical as what I just did. So like I said, the language is a little bit challenging because it was written so long ago, over 170 years ago. However, just do the best you can. Keep in mind the context of it. So if you understand what the problems might be, some of the language might be a little bit easier. And then ultimately, you only have to do 2 out of the 8. So give it your best try. And then obviously tomorrow, when going over them, I'll sort of fill in the rest and what exactly is being asked for when we go over that. All right, everybody. Hopefully you have a good week. I know that, as we get into the fourth quarter here, I mentioned it before, but, just do the best you can, really, if you have good self-direction, keep it up. If not, just, trying to introduce some things from American history to you that hopefully you'll find interesting. I know that not all of the lessons, especially when we're doing it remotely, are always home runs, but I think that this is going to help you for your studies next year, and hopefully we'll finish out the year strongly. All right, I hope you're all doing well, and I will chat with you tomorrow.